So, what happens when a digital threat is so bad, so urgent, that it just can't wait for the next scheduled update? Well, today we're going to break down a cyber attack that did exactly that. It forced an emergency response, and really, it pulls back the curtain on this high-stakes game of digital cat and mouse. You see, usually there's a rhythm to this stuff. On the second Tuesday of every month, like clockwork, Microsoft rolls out a bunch of updates and security fixes. We call it Patch Tuesday. It's scheduled, it's predictable, it's just the normal way things are supposed to work. But what if hackers are already using a flaw against people? Right now. What happens when waiting for that next Tuesday just isn't an option? Well, that's when the whole routine gets thrown out the window. An emergency, out-of-band patch gets rushed out. And that is precisely the story we're diving into today. Okay, so that brings us to our first part, the emergency warning that basically put the entire cybersecurity world on high alert. Now, the heart of this story is something called a zero-day vulnerability. And folks, this is the big one. It means attackers found a security hole and they are already using it. The developers have had literally 0 days to fix it before the first attack lands. It is a mad dash against the clock. So the specific flaw we're talking about has an official name, CVE 2026-21509. But what that really means in plain English is it's a security feature bypass in Microsoft Office. Think of it this way. An attacker found a clever trick to just walk right past the security guards that are supposed to be protecting you. And just how bad is it? Well, it gets a score of 7.8 on what's called the CVSS scale. To put that in perspective, that's firmly in the high-severity category. It's not a perfect 10, but it's definitely the kind of thing that makes security experts sit up and pay very, very close attention. All right, so we have a pretty serious vulnerability, and we know it's being used out in the wild. The next big question is, who's using it? This is where the digital forensics starts to uncover some very distinct fingerprints.
And according to Ukraine's Computer and Emergency Response Team, the group behind this is APT-28. Now, this isn't just some random group. They're a well-known state-sponsored hacking unit linked to Russia. And their target? Not just anyone. They were going after high-level executive authorities in the Ukrainian government. So right away, you know this is a targeted geopolitical cyber operation.
Now, here is where it gets really wild. Look at this timeline. Microsoft tells the world about this vulnerability on January 26th. The very next day, January 27th, the malicious Word document is created. And just 2 days after that, boom, it's being used in an active attack. That turnaround is just breathtakingly fast. It shows these attackers were not just skilled, they were ready and waiting to pounce. So how did they actually do it? How does a Word doc become a weapon? Well, the answer is hidden inside the file itself. So let's go follow the digital breadcrumbs. Okay, so the investigation starts with this one file, bulletin_h.doc. What the analysts do is basically crack it open and dump out all the code. And it's messy. They have to sift through just thousands of lines of data, decode these obscure hexadecimal values, all in the hunt for that one little piece of code that gives the entire game away. And here it is. This is the smoking gun. Buried deep inside almost 20,000 lines of code is this network path. You see those 2 backslashes at the very beginning? That's the giveaway. This isn't pointing to something on your computer. No, this is a command telling the program to reach out over the internet to a server controlled by the attackers. So that leads to the really crucial question. How does a simple Word document trick your computer into running a malicious command from some random server on the internet? I mean, that's the real genius and the danger of this whole exploit. So your computer has this process called Shell Explorer. It's a totally legitimate, trusted part of Windows that helps you open files and navigate around. Normally, it just does its job. But this exploit, it abuses that trust. It uses the vulnerability to fool Shell Explorer into executing that hidden command. It basically turns a trusted part of your own system against you. So let's trace the whole attack chain from start to finish. First, the victim opens that booby-trapped Word doc. That doc secretly connects to the attacker's server and downloads a malicious shortcut file. That shortcut then downloads and runs the real malware. And finally, that malware does something called COM hijacking. It's a sneaky way of tricking Windows into running malicious code instead of a normal program, which lets the attacker get deep into the system and set up shop for good. Okay, so after seeing just how complicated and sophisticated this attack is, you might be thinking, what could possibly stop something like this? Well, as we're about to see, the answer is actually surprisingly simple. Yep. Despite all the technical wizardry, the digital forensics, the geopolitics, the most fundamental defense is still the most effective. The real solution is to patch your software. You just have to update. And the good news is, a fix is already out there. Because this was a 0-day being actively used, Microsoft didn't wait for the next Patch Tuesday. They pushed an emergency out-of-band update specifically to close this one security hole. So if you have automatic updates turned on, you're probably already protected. But even though patching is the answer here, this whole incident leaves us with a much bigger, more difficult question. When state-sponsored hackers can take a vulnerability from disclosure to a fully weaponized attack in under 72 hours, is our traditional way of defending ourselves really fast enough anymore? It's definitely something to think about.